Thanks for joining us today, guys. We are doing a segment called Healthy Minds, where we're teaming up with the Catch Can Wellness Coalition's mission of prevention and stopping the stigma. I'm Brittany Pope, and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the community. I work with women and men in the areas of grief, anxiety and depression, and trauma and veterans.
I'm Caitlin Andrews, licensed clinical social worker. So I do mental health therapy for all ages, 6 and up. So I say 6 to 99. And my practice is called Elan Wellbeing.
So we're going to bring today the topic of mindfulness. And funny enough, I was not mindful doing this. I was actually supposed to give Caitlin like a list of like, these are things that I want to talk about today, but I'm a really good person about just keeping it in my head. So we're just going to really bring some community resources to you, what mindfulness is, some simple techniques that you can try in the comfort of your own home, closing the door in your office, wherever you are. That way you can bring mindfulness into your daily routine. So Caitlin, what's your take on mindfulness? What's your definition?
Being present in the moment.
So meaning
Simple
like
as that.
sleeping?
No, being present, observing yourself objectively.
Okay, I love the objectively because I think a lot of times when we try to be present and we try to be mindful, we really try to do it subjectively.
Yeah, and judge ourselves.
Right, like, oh, I didn't like do XYZ today and I
Right.
didn't take care of myself, and that's very subjective. So when you say objective mindfulness, what does that mean in this example?
Yeah, well, pretend that you're watching yourself just like someone else would, and you're observing exactly what you're doing in that moment. And no judgment, just observing.
And so what that means in like, let's just break it down for people who are like, what does it mean to not judge myself? What does it mean to be objective? Because for us, being therapists in the mental health field and working with our clients in this every day, it's super easy for us to be like, oh, this is so easy.
Right.
Like we're good at self-care. Although we are the worst clients, in my opinion.
Like nurses are the worst patients, therapists are the worst.
Right. So I think you have to figure out where am I at in my journey with mindfulness first, right? So in your, I guess, your journey, if you don't mind to disclose, where are you at? Being a mom of 2, like chaotic, starting your own
it's hard.
business, like
Totally.
holy moly, girl, you're busy. So if someone in your shoes, single mom, or not single mom, but single or married
Not a
mom,
single mom.
but someone in your shoes with mother of 2, how do you fit mindfulness? And this just doesn't have to do with kids, but we're busy people. We're busy human beings. How do you fit mindfulness into your day?
It's hard, and we have to be conscious about it. And it can be little things. So if you get a break when the kids are both napping, 5 minutes to yourself. I've heard of moms locking themselves literally in the closet for a second.
So like putting yourself in timeout.
Right.
It's perfect.
Yes, a timeout. For my toddler, we call it a reset. We call it his reset in his bedroom. So anyways, sitting by yourself, you can do guided imagery. I love doing ones in the winter because I have a hard time with the winter weather.
Right.
So I do ones that are like on a beach in the sun. And those only take a couple minutes, and then I feel so much better just being in the moment. And something really helpful that I'm trying to practice is resetting my thinking. So if I'm getting frustrated as a mom, I think I get to do this. I get to have this moment as a mom, not that I have to do this.
I love that because you're taking the judgment out of being a mom. I mean, I think sometimes we hear this term like mom guilt,
Right.
mom shaming.
It's real, yeah.
And we do that, I think whether it's mom or not, we shame and guilt ourselves when we're not doing the things that we feel like we need to be doing.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, so this weekend I got Reiki, and if you don't know what Reiki is, it's an Eastern Chinese meditation without medication, where they work with your energy fields, they work with your air, they work with your earth, they work with your water, and you can look those up. They're all different types of digestion issues, brain, all different types of energies throughout your body. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to be mindful this weekend. After an exhausting weekend, I'm going to do Reiki. And after I got it done, I asked the lady, I said, because I'm productive. I'm like, what do I need to do to be present, be mindful, right? And she said, do nothing. And I looked at her like she had 10 heads, right?
Yeah.
She's like a hydra-headed monster. Like, why are you telling me to do nothing, right?
Hard.
Because we are so purposeful in mindfulness, right? So present, so purposeful, that we sometimes make mindfulness the free time that we need to do something, right? But like you said, it can just be putting yourself in the closet and just like giving yourself that alone time.
I like to view it as a reflection time or a reset time, like I said with my toddler. One of the best supervisors I had, he would require us every quarter to take a reflection day. and go be present with ourselves. If that meant, one time I worked on my vision board, something that's for yourself. Meeting a friend for coffee, and then going for a drive and looking out at the water if that's relaxing to you.
And don't do a guided imagery while you're driving.
Oh, right. Those are two separate things, folks.
Yep. Well, and I have clients all the time that say, like, when I'm listening to music and I'm driving down our 30 miles of road here in Ketchikan, that's when I feel present. That's when I can connect the most. So that's interesting that you bring up that example, because I think it is something, we all have our commutes home. So why not turn the phone off? Or you can keep the radio on, but maybe put on something like, so you can de-escalate from a really stressful work day.
That's another thing. As a mom, I have a 30-minute drive after I drop the kiddos off in the morning at daycare. So for me, that's my time to myself to play music or play a podcast, and it's 30 minutes to myself to like get ready for my day while I'm getting to town.
Do you play Wheels on the Bus? Like, what's your...
Yeah.
You can play any kind of music, especially when you're doing like guided imagery or there's guided meditations. If anybody's ever heard of YouTube or Dr. Google, you can Google or YouTube.
Oh, tons of stuff.
Tons of stuff for free.
And it's all free.
Yeah.
You can even download meditation apps so that you have it at the ready for yourself. So.
And I tell people with meditation apps, though, to not make it so routine and so reliant on that technology piece, because it's another piece in mindfulness that we think that we need to be associated with our phone, when in reality, I've read studies where we are becoming so antisocial because we're connecting too much with our phone and not enough with other people.
Yeah.
So is there any mindfulness that you could do with your partner, or that anything come to mind, or you could do with your kids? I know you said you send your toddler to reset, but that's obviously not something you're doing together.
Yeah.
What about your family? What can you do as a family to bring mindfulness into your home?
Well, I think one of our favorite things to do as a family is going to walk around Ward Lake. I mean, that's not inside our home, but that's one of our favorite things to do.
Well, and you make a good point. It doesn't have to be inside the four walls of your home. It can be at work. It can be it can be out in the community. So walking around Ward Lake, any other...
Yeah, I mean, we cook together, we make Play-Doh together, and that's a really quiet activity where we just have quiet time and sit there and play with it after we've made it.
And is your mind thinking about 10 other things?
No, you have to focus on your time with your kiddos. I get to do this right now. I'm so blessed. I get to have this time.
And again, you talk about mindfulness, and it's really associated with mindset. So that's a really cool thing. I don't think a lot of people connect that. I think that we think, okay, I'm going to do this time, but yet I'm going to create this grocery list in my head. That's what I do.
It's so hard not to.
It's so hard not to. So how do you bring yourself back?
Well, it actually gets better with practice. I always tell clients doing a guided imagery, the first time you do it, you might feel your mind just totally all over the place. You have to bring yourself back and keep doing that, and it gets easier.
What does that mean? What does bringing yourself back to the moment mean?
Close off those thoughts and recenter.
So literally like taking those thoughts, wadding them up and throwing them out your head. Like literally visualizing yourself, shutting that down, shutting that door, and then looking towards whatever you're doing, being present.
And I would also suggest when you're sitting down to do a meditation, if you want to physically write down your list of everything you're thinking about to get it outside of your head, it's a huge help. I have people that shred it up or burn it, get rid of it for now, or you can just give yourself permission. Here's my list. I'm going to look at that when I'm done being mindful.
That's really interesting that you say that, because we talk about journaling. I think a lot is like doing something to help cope. We don't really talk about making lists to help cope. So I think that's an interesting technique.
It helps a lot of people at night if they're about to get into their relaxation time. Because you're giving yourself, it helps because you're telling yourself, there's my list, I'm not going to forget it now. It's down on paper, I can't forget it. But right now, I don't need to focus on it, it'll be there tomorrow.
Unless your dog eats your list. I'm just saying, that is a possibility, like your dog eating your homework.
Okay, put it up high if you have a problem dog.
So, I think we all have problem dogs, or cats. So we talked about mindfulness, we talked about the art of being present, we talked about some ways you can bring it into your family life. You work full-time, I work full-time, we have other things going on. What about how can you incorporate it into your work day? What are some fast tips like that you do as a social worker in your job? Because you have a pretty stressful job.
I take a break and take a little walk sometimes.
So
like fresh air, or
just around the
just leaving your office even.
Okay.
You have to like leave your phone, unplug, put on your door if you have to that you're on a break so that people don't bother you.
So again, it's setting boundaries is what I hear you saying with yourself.
The stairwell is a safe place for me to go up and down the stairs because people can't find me. So, you just have to work with what you have.
I think that's a really good example because sometimes our work environments aren't conducive to big things like that. So maybe if you work in like a cubicle environment or if you work in an environment where the only safe space is the stairs, it's like your only quiet space, then you incorporate those into your mindset.
Sometimes you have to be creative, but there's always a way. I mean, if you have your own office, if you're able to unplug, do some stretching, a few minutes of stretching.
So what would you tell, we have people watching this, right? So what if we have someone sitting on the couch, like watching this right before they're going to watch their show that says, I don't have time for mindfulness. What would you say to them?
I think they're not. If they make it a priority, it's going to happen. If they realize the value in it, you can always make time for it.
And so when you say make time for it, do they need to be doing this an hour a day?
No, I wouldn't. But I do say that you need to schedule it into your day because to set a goal, if we don't actually put it on our calendar, the time that we're going to plan to do it, it's not going to happen. We're all busy creatures. That's just human life. So you have to actually schedule it into your day. And I say 3 minutes helps.
That's interesting. So I can do 3 minutes of mindfulness. So you're telling me, like, as a non-believer of mindfulness, because I know we're going to have some skeptics, because obviously...
Okay, so if you don't have time, I would tell you start with 1 minute.
Okay, so 1 minute a day. That seems doable.
I think you can find 1 minute.
And if I'm new to mindfulness, and I'm asking for people that are new, I mean, because I do it in my day, maybe not religiously, but
not
I do it.
Not as much as we should.
Yes, right? I do it. I'm working on actually making space for myself, which I'll talk about in a second. So if so 1 minute a day, what should I start out doing? You mentioned guided imagery. Is there anything else besides guided imagery that I could do in that 1 minute?
I mean, if you like yoga, you like to stretch.
Okay, so I could stretch that. And in the piece of stretching, if I make that list, I have to bring myself back. So that's what I need to be disciplined doing during the mindfulness, is making sure I'm present on what I'm doing. Okay?
You'll catch your mind wandering. It happens. Like I said, it gets easier with practice.
And then again, you said be objective. So being objective and non-judgmental in that time of, like, my mind wanders to, I have 10 things going on today. I do have 10 things going on, so I give that attention.
That's not what I'm doing right now.
And then I go back to what I'm doing. So I'm working on giving myself some space. And this is an interesting perspective, I think, in mindfulness, because we talk about purpose, we talk about doing stuff, and I talked about the Reiki session, and they said, do nothing. And so my assignment for myself, and I say assignment, but my task for myself is making space. So instead of doing something for my mindfulness time, I'm actually going to do nothing.
What does that look like?
What does that look like for me? So your tables have turned, right? So for me, that just looks like sitting there and not having any thoughts. And it's not doing anything like at the same time. It's just sitting still. Because sometimes in this fast-paced life of the United States, individualized, like looking at our careers, being young or even older, closer to retirement, we're worried about money. We have a lot of stuff going on. We don't necessarily do nothing. And I find that I have so much purposeful intentions in my day, and I have so much great self-care, but it's all doing.
Right.
Or giving to people.
So the doing nothing is really important for you, yeah.
Yeah, so I think you have to really look at, where am I at? Am I a beginner? And like Caitlin said, if you begin 1 minute a day or 1 minute 5 days a week, give yourself the weekends off. You might find that helps with your routine. Or if you're like a pro mindfulness person, maybe change it up. Maybe add in some new mindfulness activities. Is there anything in the community, like, does Ketchikan provide anything that would help people with mindfulness?
Totally. The library does free yoga every Monday evening.
You said free? Like, nothing?
Free.
There's nothing free.
You just pop in.
Okay, so really it's free. Free mindfulness in this town. That's amazing. So,
and there's lots of other yoga classes at the rec center too, but the
for
library,
pretty low cost. The rec center does a pretty good job of making it affordable for people.
I agree, yeah.
So free yoga at the library Monday nights, 5 o'clock. There also, I know, and I don't know if you know much about it, and you probably do because in your position, SAIL. SAIL seems to have some like peer support groups.
Yep, that's also Mondays, so you can't go to both of those things. You'd have to switch it up because that's 5:30.
Okay, so there's a peer support group for mental health needs on Monday nights. There is a mindfulness on Monday nights. Is there anything else? Like, is there resources at Peace Health? Are there resources at KIC, Gateway? Do we know of any big resources at any of our agencies?
Well, there's lots of counseling available in Ketchikan.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
And there's grief support groups available through the hospital hospice.
Oh, perfect. The volunteer grief support groups.
So you just call them to ask for more information.
Okay, so we've got resources. We talked about our big agencies. We also have smaller private practices like Caitlin and I are in. And I know, Ketchikan Indian community has some great programs for Native members, tribal members, that, they have a mindfulness group.
They do? Mm-hmm. That's great.
And they also have a recovery prevention group, too, going on now. So, you can call those agencies, Gateway, Aquila, KIC, and what's the other one? Community Connections.
And I have a list updated of all these agencies in town, all the private practices, everyone that offers behavioral health support and services. So you can always contact me to get that list.
So you talked about therapy, right? Being a benefit of working with someone and maybe learning some mindfulness skills. Yeah. So how do people get therapy? Like, how does that happen? Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say therapy, counseling, we interchange those two words. It means the same thing. I would tell someone to first go to their medical provider, whether that's their nurse practitioner or their doctor. We have so many different clinics in town. If you don't have a provider, it's a good time to find one because we need to rule out physical symptoms anyway when you're struggling with something that could be mental health related. So anyways, go to your provider first, tell them what's going on, and ask them to help you get set up with a therapist. And they'll be able to hook you up with resources for the right fit, someone that takes your insurance.
Oh, that's a great idea. You don't think about mental health and physical health being connected. And so it's always important to rule out physical. If you have some sort of physical symptom, I think that's a really good idea. Visit your doctor, have them give you a list or give you a business card of who they think might be a good fit.
I mean, headaches, stomach aches,
totally.
Aches and pains, a lot of times it goes hand in hand, so it's really important to go to a medical provider also.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great place to start, and a lot of people are comfortable with their medical provider. I know that I would be very comfortable asking my doctor, who should I see? Yeah. Because they work with you, they know you, they might be able to have a couple good people, so it's not an overwhelmingly big process of calling about 6 people. And that can be frustrating too, I think, is accessing and getting calls back.
It can be scary.
Yeah.
Discouraging. Yeah.
Am I going to hear from someone? I'm sharing my information over the phone. I mean, that can be really scary.
You call, and there are wait lists in town a lot of times. I mean, it's that just happens. So if you need a friend to help support you, if you have a friend or a family member, a spouse, if you need help making the calls.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a great idea. We don't often ask for what we need.
That's true.
And that's also part of being mindful, is knowing what we need, knowing the benefits of accessing these things. Right. And speaking of benefits, and I don't mean insurance, what are the benefits of mindfulness? There's probably a ton, but what are some immediate ones that you maybe notice or that you notice when working with your clients?
Well, I think that for one thing, it benefits all your relationships in your life. When I'm talking about talking about taking time for myself as a busy mom, you can just see how much that would benefit my kiddos.
Oh, that's such a great way to put it. Like, if you access help, it's going to benefit the people around you.
We have to take care of ourselves before we can take care of everybody else, and that's really hard to do. But
well, and if you look at like these cups, right? You want to look at like how much is in my cup, and if you only have a cup half full, can you really give to someone? Right. So a benefit of doing mindfulness could be filling that cup up, could be rejuvenating yourself in that moment. And I do love, again, how you said I can take 5 minutes during a nap, or it's not a horrible thing to put on a movie for your child if you need a break. Yeah. So a benefit could be giving yourself a break. Then you can really be present because you get to be with your kids. You get to do these beautiful things in life. Right. And you'll appreciate them more.
Because if we're not taking time for ourselves and it's just go, 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 and we're with our kids, but we're frustrated and that's not healthy. You know, we're not giving them all that we should be.
And so there's the benefit of really being present, right? Of enjoying things. Is there any other maybe health benefit or?
Well, like we talked about, the physical health and mental health going hand in hand. It's going to make you healthier all around. I mean,
Right, so it'll give back to yourself. It'll give to your
if
family.
you're not taking care of yourself, you know, you're not taking time to exercise, do all these things that you need to be doing. Just taking care of yourself.
Right.
It's going to impact your physical health.
Totally. So
in a big way.
It'll help your well-being, right? And all that, the 8 domains of wellness that go with that. So like financial, emotional, relational, I'm not saying the right ones, but so it'll help all of that. What about work? How could it help your employer if you practice mindfulness? Like, I mean, when you're talking about taking it during a work day, like you're getting paid, right?
Right.
So how does that benefit your employer?
If you're taking 5 minutes away from your office, but you're able to reset yourself and be mindful and come back full of more energy, how's that going to impact your employer? Rather than just drudging through your day and being maybe frustrated.
Haphazardly doing things.
One really important thing as a mom or at work or whatever you're doing in your day, really important to recognize when you're about to snap. When you're
up here, right?
Yeah, we have to recognize that that's like, hey, I need to take a couple minutes to myself.
But doesn't that make you weak?
No.
Okay, because that's a popular misconception of being mindful or maybe admitting vulnerabilities, admitting when you do need a break can feel like weakness. And so if you're mindful and present, do you think that helps with that myth in a way?
Yeah.
Do you think that connects with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Totally. So I'm in my doctoral program, and I have a resiliency class going on right now. We're talking about a lot of mindfulness. And they gave an example of someone scrolling on their Facebook, looking at pictures of dogs, and the dog being right next to them. And so that was so powerful for me because I've done that.
Right.
You know, I've sat on social media or my phone and
and
scrolled, and my animal is sitting right next to me, like waiting for me all day, and my family, or you know. And so I think that another benefit is if you could take the technology out of your mindfulness, it would tenfold get back to you.
Yeah,
it would tenfold get back to you. So I think
so. You're not a fan of the meditation apps, actually.
I'm not a huge fan of them. I think we have a lot of anxiety associated and some social comparison and some self-esteem stuff associated with phones. And so when teaching like our children, like we're becoming so dependent, and our social connection is actually lessening.
No, I agree.
Because of social media.
And how many
phones.
times have we heard and read in studies, if you go out to eat and you look at all the families that should be having a nice dinner together and they're all on their phones. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And we also know that social media and comparing yourself to others, because we're usually posting the good things in our life, not all the real life things, that if that's all we're looking at, we're going to judge ourselves and feel bad.
And you can check out, like literally when your dog's sitting right next to you and you're looking at a picture of dogs, like there's no connection even going on with your dog. There's no connection going on with your family. So I just think it's like, I think if you're going to use a mindfulness app, I think it helps for some people. I don't think you should rely on it as a like, this is the everyday, I'm going to be on my phone scrolling through whatever and doing it that way. I think we need to get back to the basics of human connection, because we're missing that. Whether it's if you want to be mindful during a conversation with your partner, if you want to be mindful during a conversation with your children.
Well, and you know what the homework I've assigned clients before, they got a basket by the front door, and the rule was the whole family put their cell phones in the basket when they got home from school or work, because then it lets you focus on each other and not your phones.
Well, and you know, I was listening to the radio in the morning, I don't know what station, and I got to laughing. I think it's the Australian lady. I don't remember what her name is, but she was talking about how they were doing dinner and everybody was on their phone. And so instead of like everybody being on their phone, they agreed as like a friend group, everybody's going to put their phone in the middle of the table. And the first person to touch their phone pays for dinner.
I love that.
So who's going to touch their phone? I don't want to pay for your pizza and catch a can because it's so expensive, or your dinner. Like, that's not...
But what a great idea.
Yeah. So I think there are ways you can disconnect. And I know for me, my partner is like, we're going to go on a date and like we're not going to be on our phones. Let's leave them downstairs. Let's because it's so easy for you to get sucked into work, sucked into a text message, sucked into the internet. So I'm not saying I'm not a fan and I wouldn't support my clients if they really wanted to use their phone. Maybe it's the way that they keep their calendar and that works. Yeah. But I think that if we become reliant on that, we're going to lose the human connection piece of that. And that's where I have, and even a human connection with ourselves. Yeah. You know, because we disconnect from everything when we watch stuff on social media. So.
Well, and the guided imagery and meditation and stuff, there are tons of books, there's CDs you can get, you can print off things, and that helps a lot of people to just sit there and have to read the guided imagery. So for some people it's better to listen. It just depends on your style.
And I have people ask me in session all the time, what are some good mindfulness resources? There's so much evidence-based stuff out there on mindfulness. Almost anything you find could be a good resource. And it's so individualized depending on what you're interested in that for me it's really hard to recommend a book. Yeah. Because what I prefer for mindfulness might not be what my client prefers.
There's some good TED Talks.
But there are some good TED Talks. I would recommend, some of like Brene Brown's books. It's an easy read. She has great TED Talks. And there was a book called Thanks. I forget the author's name. If you look it up, you'll find it. But it's a little bubble, and it says Thanks. And it's a gratitude book that I just recently started reading and am going to recommend to clients. And so, mindfulness and gratitude go hand in hand because that being present is that art of being, I'm blessed, I get to do this, I'm thankful. So a homework assignment I'd give a client that would want to be practicing mindfulness and gratitude would be a gratitude letter. Write a letter to someone, be present, make that a mindfulness activity and write a gratitude letter. Yeah. It's harder than you think to write a letter.
And there's a good website that I've discovered for moms and practicing mindfulness, workingmothers.com. So that's another resource that I wanted to throw out there.
Great. Okay. Being a parent, whether you're a parent or not, working full time, all this stuff makes our days busy. Makes it hectic to fit this in. So I think starting meeting with yourself where you're at, if you can only commit to it 3 days a week, commit to it 3 days a week for a minute.
If you have to start it, like we said, 1 minute. And really you have to work on changing your mindset. So I just want to repeat again, we get to do this.
So just to recap, so mindfulness is the art of being present, not having 10 things going on. Right. Some resources in the community. We talked about the big agencies, Kitchkin Indian Community, Aquila, Gateway, which is the same, and Community Connections for kids or adults. And then also the list of private practitioners. There's too many to list. I mean, there's not a ton, but I don't want to miss anybody.
There's a lot available, though.
There's a lot available,
People don't realize,
So private practitioners in the community. And then also the free yogas, whether they're at the rec center or they're at the library. There's the Polar Plunge on Saturdays at 10:30. Derek Meister and Tyrell Retke host, and they posted on Facebook like it's the biggest event in Ketchikan every weekend. I mean, they're pretty dedicated to it, and that's mindfulness for them to jump in that cold water, which for me, thinking about it makes my bones hurt. But for them, that's mindfulness, and I think it's important just to recognize it can be like a range of just different things in between.
I mean, there's a hiking club in town. It's on Facebook.
There's all sorts of things.
And if, there's the rec center if you want to walk somewhere dry, and there's scholarships available at their front desk if someone needs help going there.
That's awesome to know. I did not realize that. So just to wrap it up, try it for a minute. If it works for you, figure out what activity that is. Or like me, make space for yourself and do nothing. Because that's what I'm going to do.
But you schedule it, right?
Yeah, I'm going to schedule 5 minutes every day. I'm going to start with 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go from there. So
because like we said, we have to actually schedule it to make it happen.
Yep.
Your calendar, or whatever you use to keep track of your day.
Well, and again, you're talking about scheduling. That's really discipline. So underneath of this is really being disciplined in your practice of mindfulness. So thank you so much for the topic today. The content was awesome. Thank you guys for watching. This is Healthy Minds in collaboration with Ketchikan Wellness Coalition and Caitlin and I. My name is Brittany Pope. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and this is...
I'm Caitlin Andrews, licensed clinical social worker.
So be you, be happy, be well, and stay mindful.